Hey everybody, it's Coach Patrick here, back with another weekly coach lesson. Every week, 12 o'clock East Coast time here, I sit down with you for 15 to 30 minutes to talk about a specific topic relevant for endurance athletes. Try and keep it front of mind, try and keep it current event-y, and give you information and resources that help you become a better athlete. We believe that smarter athletes are faster athletes inside Endurance Nation. And the sooner we get you on the smart track, the sooner you can be on the fast track, which is what everybody wants. At least be a slightly faster version of themselves. If it's not, you want to be the fastest person ever. And so as we think about what it means now here in 2021, it is June 16th. And when we think about heading into moving through the year, a lot of it right now is about getting back to our old schedule, which means traveling. And so today's topic is all about traveling and traveling tips for endurance athletes. I've compiled some lessons learned from my own experience and from working with our athletes around travel. And I think they're important to review, if only because travel in and of itself combines two unique elements that make things a little interesting. First of all, there's the excitement of traveling, right? You're going somewhere, you're going to do something, whether it's a race or a camp or an event. But at the same time, you have to do a lot of new things or remember old things to be ready for it. So we have this intersection of excitement, but also sort of anxiety or administrative stuff. And that intersection doesn't always work super well. They're sort of two opposing forces. If we can get them to turn at the last minute and head off into the distance, it'd be perfect. But if we don't do it properly, then one wins out over the other, right? The excitement has you all amplified for the event and you forget some key stuff, miss some key elements. On the inverse side, the anxiety or administrative stuff that you're trying to get done overwhelms you, consumes you, and you miss out on the fun part of getting to go somewhere and do something. In fact, it becomes more like a job than an opportunity. And we want to avoid that as well. So trying to find that golden mean between these two opposite poles and turn them in a direction that makes things successful for you. So today, as I talk about travel, I'll be talking about travel, and I'm assuming all modalities. Perhaps you're not traveling by blimp or electric scooter, but I'm assuming long distance travel involves either a car or a plane. Or some similar version of that. So take it in a grain of salt. Depending on what I'm saying, you may say, but I'm not in a Concorde supersonic jet. Fine with me. I'd be jealous if you were, but let's use those accordingly so you make sure that you're all dialed in and you can be as successful as possible across the course of your trip. All right. So with that said, first and foremost, the number one thing that we want to think about as we plan for these long trips here really is checklists, right? So rather than you freaking out about what it means to be ready and how do you handle the nuances of getting from where you are now to where you need to be, you're effectively dismantling all of your equipment, packing it up and getting to a destination and putting it all back together again. You'll have a newfound appreciation for people who put on events on a regular basis. It's no small feat to do it and do it. You may, in fact, have brought that special wrench with you or special duct tape, but if you can't find it, does it really matter if you brought it? I'm not sure. So the checklists make a big difference. So first level checklist we want is all the administrative stuff associated with your trip, right? The routes that you're taking, directions, the flights, rental cars, lodging, whatever all the different pieces are, people on the other side you're meeting. You want to have all of that information organized and put in a neat space. With that information in hand, ideally printed out or saved somewhere that you can access easily, you don't really have to worry about things because things will pop up in your mind. You'll be halfway to the airport and say, what's my flight confirmation number again? And you'll be fighting the urge to look it up as you're driving to the airport. Super bad idea. But if you have it all written down ahead of time, you know that when you get there, you say, all right, you know what? I don't have to worry about that right now because when I get there, I can pull out my handy dandy cheat sheet and I've got all the information right there. For example, one thing that I use is I know that if my flight's at 11, then I'm probably at the airport at 10. So I have a reminder that goes off at 10, and the title of the reminder is the airline name and the confirmation number, those six digits, so that when I get to the airport, I pull up my phone, the reminder is right on my phone. It says American Airlines, and this is my confirmation number. I can just enter that right in on the kiosk. I don't have to pull out my wallet, start looking in my email, etc. You learn these little pieces along the way. So have all of those administrative elements done so you're really not worried so much and you understand as you go through that process where the potential conflicts may arise. If you know that you're landing in Houston at a certain time X, but you're taking off from Houston to go somewhere else at X plus 20 minutes, so that's a tight turnaround, and you know that now, not when you're landing. So just better to be all well prepared. And then similarly, when you get on the ground, particularly after a long trip, if you've got stuff stored on devices or just even at the end of the trip, you're tired, it's really hard to remember. what's the name of the person who was hosting me, or how do I contact someone in case of emergency, or what do I do? If it's all written down, nothing to worry about. You've got it all in those checklists. Okay. Then the second order of checklists that you want is all of your equipment and gear. And this is also really important as well. And we have these checklists for athletes inside Endurance Nation just to streamline that process as well. So we're not trying to overnight you parts or connect you with someone on the ground who lives in the region of your event to find the piece or the element or the equipment that you need. So when we think about success from a gear perspective, it's really important that you put yourself in the mindset of your race. Hopefully you've already done that a few times using our race simulation protocols that we build into your training plan. When you do that, you have to go through all the processes of understanding equipment, clothing, nutrition. And so you've been wrestling a little bit with those topics. So now as we're planning to leave, it's accumulating all those things together. And since you've been practicing it, much easier for you to actually implement. Hey, I'm going to be on the run course. How much do I eat on the run course? I eat this much. I'm going to bring twice as much of that just in case. Hey, I'm going to be swimming in open water, so I need my wetsuit. I'll need my goggles. I'll also want my spray lube. I'll want, who knows what else. I want a brightly colored swim cap because I got to check in, but I don't know where the race swim cap, the race. So I got to bring my swim cap with me. Maybe I want some sandals if it's a sandy beach. All those little elements go into this equipment checklist so you can pull all of that out. Power user tip here on the packing side, don't put anything away in your suitcase until you have it done. So use your bed, get your bed and just put everything out on the bed. If you can, divide it up by days or by phases of your trip, so you can see everything in each box and say to yourself, did I pack the socks that I'd like to wear on race day? Because you can see them over there. In fact, you probably have 2 pairs of those socks just in case, right? So I'm going to have all of those elements laid out. Similarly speaking, if you're moving to or competing in or adventuring in an area that's different geographically than yours, there may be some other weather-related elements that you need as well, such as sunscreen, or maybe different types of clothing, like a hat that you may not normally be wearing right now. So definitely identify all those elements on this checklist as well. Okay. Second part, key tip here, essential tip for endurance athletes who are traveling is staying moving. And I'm not talking about turning on your Garmin watch to capture the plane hurtling at 750 miles across the United States or wherever you may be traveling. Although I'm sure you could do that for sure. I've got a good friend who owns the segment from Boston to New York City, of course, in his car, but very fast for sure. Anyway, so we don't want to be that person. And so what we want to do actually is make sure that we're focused on the right things during our travel. And one of the biggest pieces about travel that's very hard for us as endurance athletes is sitting still. If we're not moving, then odds are we're either working, which we have to do, or we're passed out sleeping. And that intermediary state where we're in a fixed position, not so great for our bodies, particularly as we age. And so we have to be really mindful of that. So if you happen to be in a car and you have a long trip in a car, having someone else you can trade driving responsibilities is huge, because you can always move around the passenger seat or adjust it as you need. You lay it back, sit it up, whatever you need to do. There's a fair amount of movement you can do there. Or if you're in a bigger vehicle, obviously you have more space in the back to do some stretching or movement, etc. If you are not in such a scenario, or even if you are in one, but it's a smaller than ideal car scenario, then manage to try and find a way to stop about every 90 minutes safely, not just on the side of the highway and pop all your doors open, but find a rest stop or something. You can always refresh your water, but just get out, stretch, even if it's slightly inclement weather, as long as it's safe. Not middle of the night, we want to stretch, get loose, just shake our legs out, just makes a big difference. Remember that a huge part of circulation is actually walking, like our calf muscles do a fair amount of work. And if you are inert for long periods of time in a car, it's no good. Okay, so super important. If you're on a plane, similarly speaking, there's a lot of standing around and waiting, hurry up and wait. And then you get on a plane, they put you in one size too small. It's like ordering your favorite shirt and they give you one size too small. Can you do it? You can totally do it. Do you like it? You do not like it. And that's like traveling on a plane. So you're totally jammed in there, overcoming your own internal anxiety about being around lots of other people without masks, or maybe that's just me. But regardless, you're trying to deal with this plane scenario. And once again, you're limited. If you're a taller person, you may or may not have access to some leg room, but regardless, you're wedged in the seat. It's not great. So on the plane side, I recommend you plan on standing up about once every hour. So if you have an aisle seat or a middle seat and hop out the aisle, that's not so bad. If you're in a window seat, that may be a little more challenging, and your seatmates may not really enjoy that prospect, particularly for a long trip. But I recommend about once an hour. That seems about reasonable if you can time it just right, to make sure that you're standing and moving about the cabin, walking back to the restroom, even if you don't need it, to walk back to the front again. Just great, again, to mobilize, improve circulation, stay loose. It may not seem like much, but it makes a difference. Similarly vein, if you are someone who owns some of that compression gear, You can put on some of that compression socks or compression leggings as well to facilitate circulation, prevent the blood from pooling in your legs and your feet, and really make things better. For me, I'm super vascular on my feet. Don't ask me why. I don't have abs. I don't have lots of muscles, but man, those feet, they look like professional athlete feet, let me tell you. They smell like them too. And so for me, my feet really swell when I travel, particularly on a plane. And so it's important that you have that movement happen and to stay healthy and stay loose. And you'll appreciate it on the other side, definitely when you get on the ground and you're trying to move again, coming out of this inert state. Okay. All right. The third key and essential tip, and I'm going to pause here briefly for a sip of my super fancy coffee, treating myself today. It is hump day. Got to get through hump day. I'm just saying. Okay, the next piece of the puzzle, how not appropriate for my next topic, is scheduled clean nutrition. What does that mean, scheduled clean nutrition? When I think about dealing with nutrition and staying healthy and happy, you've built in a routine of working out and fueling and taking care of yourself. And if you're someone who pays attention to your data, or at least the biofeedback from your nutrition choices and your training schedule, you optimize that schedule by default, right? You're not just going to automatically mess things up just because you've forgotten when eating is best for your workout, or what type of meal works best for later in the day, or what an evening training session looks like and how to adapt to it. You have this knowledge, and just instinctively, you will begin iterating against it. Once we start traveling, all of that goes out the window because everyone's got a different schedule, and your day is being forced into the program of a plane or into a rental car or into a trip to a destination, to a check-in time, to other people's schedules, etc. And there's a lot of friction in that space, which becomes difficult to manage. So scheduled clean nutrition means, number one, if you're a coffee drinker like me, surprise, know your caffeine schedule and stick to it. Okay, so if you normally have a cup of coffee in the morning, or you stop drinking coffee by noon, or you only drink decaf ever, or whatever those elements are, stick to that and follow that same schedule. So if you normally have a cup of coffee, let's say at 8 a.m., and that's your only cup of coffee of the day, but today you're flying at like 10. So your morning was kind of messed up. You had a cup of coffee to wake up because but now you're at the airport, and lo and behold, there's a coffee shop, and it'd be super good. And you're like, I might as well just treat myself to one of these enormous drinks here that I don't really need. Shame on me. Those of you at home listening in, I'm smacking my own wrist there. And you'll buy that extra coffee, which sounds fine. And hey, treats, right? You're traveling, sounds good, treat yourself. But now all of a sudden you have this extra caffeine in your system that's different. And that could be, depending how sensitive you are to caffeine, just enough to put you over the edge. So stick to that caffeine schedule for sure. Similarly, stick to your regular meal times as much as you're able. So if you like to have a nice breakfast, but not so much lunch, and then a bigger dinner, do your best to emulate that. Your body's used to that. When you give it a big meal, it's thinking it's dinner time. If you do that in the middle of the day, your body's going to say, I think it's bedtime. Similar speaking, your digestive system also adapts to that as well. So super important that you do your best to follow that schedule. Now, I'm not suggesting that you bring 87 Tupperwares with all these different accoutrements onto the plane and make things miserable, or into the car and make things miserable for everyone, including your co-pilot. I am suggesting that rhythm of food does matter. So do your best to follow that as best as you can. Okay. And then third, food shop ahead of time so you can stay clean. The food choice options in airport terminals or along the side of highways are certainly flashy and certainly multitudinous, but they are not necessarily good for your body. So when I'm traveling, especially by car, I usually do most of my food shopping at supermarkets. So if I need to stop, I try and find a place that has a supermarket, because I can buy fruit there, and I can buy nuts there. I can buy a rotisserie chicken there, or cold cuts there. I can find cleaner foods, non-processed foods, than if I just pulled up to a rest area and had to make do with what was available to me in terms of fast food, or what was available in the quick go mart, or whatever the gas station attached food option would be. And when you think about that, really planning ahead from the nutrition perspective does make sense. So do yourself a favor, even save yourself a couple of bucks by stopping at the supermarket first a couple of days out and buying those snacks. Not only the stuff that you'll be eating on a schedule if you've got something like that, but more so the healthy snacks that may fill that gap. Some nice trail mix, maybe some dried fruit. I have no idea whatever other clean foods that you enjoy eating. Snap peas. I don't know what you would bring on a plane, but get that stuff ahead of time so you have it available to you. It's just right there in your carry-on bag, and you can be super happy, and you'll never end up in one of those low blood sugar points, which is definitely a dangerous combination when you're traveling. You're far away from your pantry, you're in low blood sugar mode, and you don't quite know where you're going. That's like the worst possible version of where you could be. Want to avoid that at all costs, okay? Now, one more point to go. Those of you who are tuning in, if you've got questions, comments, or feedback, put it in the comment section. I'll see it, I'll pop it up, and we'll definitely have a chance to talk a little bit about it here as well. So please take advantage of that Facebook Live access. The last, and I think honestly most important part is from our tips here today is prioritizing your rest at the destination. And this is typically super hard because when you finally do get to where you want to be, it's like a race, right? So the closer you get to where you need to be, the more you want to be there. So you may have started off slow, but you're trying to finish fast, little negative split on this trip. And the anticipation builds as well, and you're really moving into there. And when you get there, you're so excited. If you're traveling to a beautiful destination or maybe going to see some friends, you want to get out, you want to see people, you want to do stuff. That's great. However, you've just had this trip, and it depends on the length of your trip and the means of travel. Multiple stops make it harder. I remember that flying to Cozumel for some of our athletes who are doing Ironman Cozumel, it was a plane. Then they decided to do the version that landed early, and they took a ferry over. So they had to do the plane, take a shuttle from the plane to the ferry, from the ferry over the other side, then get a shuttle from there to the hotel. That's a 4-stage trip. That's a ton of stress, multiple schedules, different languages. That's a lot to ask of you. When you get on the ground, you're like, I am in paradise. This is awesome. The food smells amazing. The fresh air is blowing, albeit at 35 miles an hour in my face. I just want to get outside. But we need to prioritize the rest. It's so important. So no matter how you travel to your destination, make sure that you've incorporated some rest options when you get there. Rest is really physically needed, whether or not you're syncing up time zones, but just in general, people don't really appreciate the stress associated with travel. And remember, your body does not differentiate when it experiences cortisol, whether it's from a workout or it's from just total stress. So if you've had a really miserable trip with lost bags, knock on wood here, or something else, your body is under stress. The hormone cortisol is in the system. Your body's trying to deal with it. Heart rate's going up. It's just stressful. And you get to the destination, you haven't worked out, but boy, kind of feels like you have. And so it's important that physically we have an opportunity to rest. Mentally as well, like just even stopping, even if you can't put your feet up and take a nap, but just to sit down for a second and catch your breath at your final destination, whether it's in the lobby or in your hotel room or in your Airbnb or wherever you may be, just have a chance to sit down and exhale and just reflect on the journey, because there's probably some stuff that's happened along the way. We've gotten some messages or notifications or maybe some changes. Just slowing things down for a second gives you an opportunity to appreciate all of the information that's come in during the course of your trip. And then ultimately, with the third point here, allows you to make better decisions going forward. So in your mind, you had a plan that you were going to get off the plane and go food shop and then go check into your hotel and then say, put your bike together. But you land, and as you're sitting down at the airport, looking out over this beautiful expanse or just relaxing for a second, because you know it's going to take 20 minutes for the bags to come in, so you don't have to race over there. As you're exhaling and just getting into your zone and appreciating that you made it and thanking your lucky stars, everyone's safe or whatever it is, take a deep breath and you can take a look at some of the information that's coming. You may find out that actually the bike place isn't actually open, or someone already went there and they don't have the stuff. And so you can eliminate that and make other changes and optimize this destination side part of your trip more quickly. And perhaps you wanted a food shop later, but then you find out that the supermarket closes at 6 for whatever reason. And so you need to do that first. All these elements become apparent to you on the end. So we need to be flexible. And the best way to be flexible is to be in that rested and calm state, which we can get into if we prioritize that rest on the other side. Similarly speaking, just giving yourself some time to chill out on the other side as well is important, particularly for those longer distance races. Typically, it's a long trip there. You're really excited about what you're going to be doing. You want to get out and test the run, test your equipment, just experience the weather, whatever it is. But you really have to make sure that your body's in the best possible state to do it. So if you do, by some reason, need to exercise right away when you get there or do something right away when you get there, do your best to immediately get back to a schedule that honors that rest and prepares you for the big physical undertaking that you're about to engage in. And the last thing you want to do is be ready, have all your stuff, have survived the trip, but just be so exhausted from never having stopped to catch your breath that you start to miss the simple, easy stuff. And those things can quickly cascade into a set of problems that become really hard to undo, whether it's over race week or in the race day itself. All right. Okay. I know we've got some folks here inside the comments in the chat. Please feel free, just drop your notes in there. I would love to hear from you about like travel nightmares, travel tips, least favorite way to travel, best place to travel. I have no idea. Feel free to type it up in there. I'll be happy to include you in the broadcast. But to recap for the folks at home, the 4 key tips for endurance athletes that I think are really critical to making sure that your travel is good. Number 1, preparation through checklists, both for the travel and for your equipment. Number 2, frequent movement. And every 90 minutes, if you're in a car or a vehicle on the road, every 60 minutes if possible in air with the additional pressure, obviously being up at altitude. Number 3, going ahead and saying, what's your scheduled clean nutrition plan? Make sure you stick to when you normally drink caffeine. Don't break that schedule. Do your your best to stick to your regular meal schedule. Snacking is okay, but that general meal schedule flow is important for you to know. And then finally, do pre-shopping ahead of time. Hit the supermarket, be good about it, and get some good clean food and snacks as alternative options to the fast food stuff that abound in most travel located food places. And then fourth and finally, prioritizing rest, just physically and mentally, so when you exit on the other side, you can be in a much happier place overall. It's very easy for people to let the proximity of the event dictate their next step or action. But this is an easy way for you to practice staying in control, keeping things inside your box, according to our 4 keys of race execution, and make decisions that not only do you own, but are optimal for you as well. And then prioritize your overall experience. And there's nothing worse than getting to a race and just being stressed out when you're there. It doesn't have to be that way. And the better you get at planning, the better off you'll be. Many of us have had the benefit of messing things up for years, often decades, to arrive at a point where we feel comfortable making decisions that are optimal. Not everyone is on the same page. So traveling with others can be awesome, but also be a challenge. Just be open to what happens. Once you leave your tiny little bubble and enter the real world, there's always some friction that can happen. I approach every single travel opportunity, whether for a camp or for a race or whatever the event may be, as an adventure. We just don't know what's going to happen. We have an idea of what's going to happen. We want it to happen. But as long as we take care of the basics, the critical stuff that we need, and we know that we have it with us, we can rest assured that regardless of what comes across the table, we have the fitness, the skills, the friends, the connections, hopefully the finances, etc., to take care of it so we can get out there and have a fantastic race. All right. Awesome. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation was 4 key travel tips for endurance athletes. If you've got other thoughts or feedback, go ahead, put them in the comments here. They'll show up on our Facebook feed. I'll be happy to follow up with you there. If you want to talk to me directly, head over to Endurance Nation. There's a little red chat icon at the bottom of the page. You can click it, ask questions. Happy to help you out. Every week, I do a welcome webinar to the team at 11. I do this talk here at noon on Facebook Live. And then at 12:30, I head over just in about 45 seconds now to the team and do office hours inside our live office hours chat to make sure everyone's dialed in and ready to go for the week, make adjustments to their training, catch up on what they did last weekend, and plan ahead for what's coming up this one. I hope wherever you are, this broadcast finds you healthy, happy, and safe, ready to enjoy the summer and get out there and hopefully do some races as well. I look forward to hearing about it. Take care, everyone. I hope to see you next week.